Thank you very much. Thank you. Yud Dalid. A ledge which is in front of a window, one may put onto it and take from it on the Sabbath. A person may stand in a private domain and may move objects in a public domain, or in a public domain and move objects to a private domain, provided he does not take them beyond 4 amos. A person may not stand in a private domain and urinate into a public domain, or in a public and urinate into a private. Similarly, he may not expectorate. Rabbi Yehuda says even when one's saliva has become detached in his mouth, he may not walk 4 amos until he expectorates. The person may not stand in a private domain and drink in a public domain, or in a public domain and drink in a private domain, unless he brings his head and most of his body into the domain in which he drinks. Similarly, regarding a wine pit, a person may catch water from a gutter lower than 10 tefachim, but from a pipe he may drink in any manner. Okay.
Okay. All right. Today's Mishnayos are going to be a little adventure because I look at them and I think, oh gosh, I neglected to prepare these. So let's do these together.
Okay.
Okay. Bor b'shus harabim. You have a hole in the middle of the b'shus harabim. V'chulya, and the chulya is the sand that's piled up around it. Gavoa asrat tvachim, and between the depth of the pit and the sand that's piled up around the edges of the pit, you've got a gap of 10 tvachim. Okay, so now that turns that little pit into a Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Chalon shel gabav. Now you've got a window above this. So there's a pit that's dug in the wall next to the window, and between the pit and the sand around it, it's more than 10 tefachim, and the window's above it. Memalin hamenu b'Shabbos. So you are allowed to fill up water from it on Shabbos. So let's say the pit is full of water, so you could lower your bucket out the window and into the pit and pull it out and take the water out, because both of them are Rosh Hashanah. So this is talking about when so the Gemara explains our Mishnah two ways. One is if the bore is 4 tefachim away from the wall, and the Mishnah is coming to teach us that if the sand of the bore is more than 10 tefachim, then it's mutar to fill up water from the bore through the window, because because he's going through a makom patur between the two Rosh Hashanah, because the air of the Rosh Hashanah above 10 tefachim is called the makom patur. But if the sand boundary is not 10 tefachim high, then it's asked to fill up from the bore, because you're going from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through the airspace of a Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Second point that it makes is that when the bore is right next to the wall, in other words, there's not all that you've got is in other words, you've got less than 10 tefachim between the bore and the wall. So the Mishnah is telling us that that the bore and its sand combine for the 10 tefachim. But even if the bore itself is not actually 10 tefachim deep, but the sand border around it is what raises it to 10 tefachim. Okay, then the din is still like a Rosh Hashanah. Okay, and you're allowed to fill up from it from the window. Since the distance between the two is less than 4 tefachim, it's a makom patur. And therefore, he's bringing the water from Rosh Hashanah to the Rosh Hashanah through a makom patur. Okay, so the Mishnah carries on. Ashpa, so that's a garbage heap.
Right.
Rosh Hashanah, gavoa 10 tefachim, and 10 tefachim high. Okay, chalon she'al gaba shofchin lesoch hamayim b'Shabbos. So if you're lucky enough to have a garbage heap right outside your window, then you can then you're allowed to pour water onto it on Shabbos. I'm not sure why we choose the example of water. That's the first question I ask is, first of all, if it's 10 tefachim high, then it's already Rosh Hashanah by itself. So the window above it, you're allowed to pour water. Why? So putting things out as well is also the same it's the same thing in either direction. So whether you're taking in from the bore or pouring out onto the garbage pile, it's the same. It's the same din Rishus Yachid to Rishus Yachid through a makom betzor. Gemara explains that this is dafka with an ashpa shel rabim. In other words, a public garbage heap. Okay, because it's not typically going to be removed from there. But when it comes to a private garbage pile, it's also to pour things onto it from the window as a gezerah, because maybe they will remove this garbage pile, and it'll be part of the Rishus Harabim again, right? Because the height will be reduced from 10 tvachim, and because of his habit, he's used to throwing things out in the garbage, and he won't realize that he's pouring things into the Rishus Harabim. Okay. Mishna ches ilan shehu meisech el haaretz. So you've got a tree that is with a canopy comes down to the ground. Im ein nofel gavoa min haaretz shloshet tvachim metaltelin tachtav. Okay. So if the branches are less than come to like less than 3 tvachim from the ground, then you can use that under the tree as a Rishus Yachid. So this could be the case with like a weeping willow or a terebinth. I think terebinth can do it. There's one tree, actually. There's a tree nearby Neve Michael, nearby Chemesh, which is quite a cute little picnic spot where it's actually kept up nicely. And this tree has got branches that come all the way down on all the sides, and you can make a little picnic underneath the tree. It's in the middle of a field. It's quite a fun little place. So this is now considered like it's proper mechitzas. However, this I recall because my Rosh Hashiva Zatzal referred to this Mishnah in a shir of his that I listened to quite recently, which is an amazing shir in which he was analyzing the idea of the sukkah with the cloth walls. Did I mention this to you?
No.
Well, it was right. Have you heard all the pikpukim where people saying that the sukkah with cloth walls because they flap in the wind, they're not kosher walls.
That you mentioned, right.
Right. So my Rosh Hashiva absolutely and utterly dissected that opinion, trashed it, and like it. But basically, the maskana is the cloth walls are 100% walls, and doesn't matter how much they flap as long as they're secured on the ends.
They don't have to be 3 tvachim. They can't go more than 3 tvachim. Is that the part?
There's no basis for it. There's absolutely no basis for requiring that the walls have to be completely still. This is tents. People used to live in tents. Those tents were good as mechitzas all the time, and people would carry inside their tents. How can you say that a tent is not a good mechitza? That's okay. Anyway, so the thing with the tree, he mentioned that the tree is that ultimately the branches do have to be secured, because if they blow apart in a ruach metzuya, that is a normal wind. If the normal wind will blow them so that the branches lift above 3 tvachim, or if it will blow them up, basically if it blows the branches so that there's more than 3 tvachim underneath them, then it's not a good mechitza anymore. It's got to be something solid. So I think there'll be a mention of this in the footnotes over here. Gemara explains, the Gemara in Sukkah explains that this is talking about where he filled in the gaps between the branches with sticks or with straw or something, and tied the branches so that a regular wind won't move them. Because any mechitza that can't stand in a regular wind is not a mechitza. So even if the wind doesn't blow, it's not a good mechitza. So that's it. Okay. Anyway, we could get into that whole discussion another time. But anyway, so sharashav gavoin mina aretz shloshet tvachim. What if the roots of the tree are higher than 3 tvachim? So now we have a din that you're not allowed to use a tree more than 3 tvachim high, because there's a gezerah that you're climbing a tree because you're going to break branches. Okay, so you're not allowed to use a tree at all. It's anything above 3 tvachim is basically you're not allowed to move. Okay, so you're not allowed to sit on it if there are branches or roots that are sitting higher than 3 tvachim. Aderes sheba muktzeh. If you have a door in the woodshed, or a special set, not really a shed, it's an area set aside for storage, and it doesn't have a proper door with a hinge. Rather, you just stick something there in the doorway. And when you want to get in and out, you just pull it out and put it back in. Okay, so we're talking. So that's what we're referring to when we say the delas shiva muktzeh. The chadakim shiva pirta, chadakim, which is basically a bunch of thorns that are gathered together that block up the entrance to a courtyard. Also, a sort of a removable door. Ein noalin bahen. Sorry, I left out machzalos, which is mats of reeds. Ein noalin bahen. You cannot use those to lock or to close the doorway on Shabbos, because they don't have the form of an actual door. They're just being used as a blockage. Okay? So therefore, so when you're putting that into the gap that you want to block up, it's like bonnet. You're adding to the structure, as opposed to a door which is built to open and close. This thing that you're putting in place looks like you're building. Okay. Unless they are high above the ground a little bit. In other words, then you can see that they are actually designated for blocking the hole, right? And it doesn't look like you're being born. So if it's lifted slightly above the ground, then it doesn't look like it's building, and you can see that it's actually designated for blocking the space.
But interesting what your Rosh Yeshiva said in this shir, because I like to hear the shir, because my neighbor, Zev Tyberg, so we have the exact same sukkah. And we have those walls that you're like an awning, you roll them down and they cover all the, right? Mm-hmm. So a couple of years ago, it came to be, he said, sometimes those things really blow. He said, and you can't be more than 3 tefachim. So he put wood around and string, and they said, I'm going to help you with yours. And he came around.
If you would like, I will direct, I'll send you the shir from Rabbi Goldfein. It's a good hour in which he sits and goes into all the makoros, dissects the argument, and utterly destroys it. It is so comprehensively destroyed. It's like I just can't. I can't imagine. Like at this point, I can't imagine. Like, what was the havamina? Why would anyone answer the clock walls? If you like, I'll send it to you. It's just an absolute eye opener. Huh?
Are we able to understand most of it?
It's English.
Wait, no, it's in English, but I mean, he's going to get into complicated Gemaras and stuff, and maybe. Listen,
Zev Tyberg can understand these things.
I know he can understand. I know.
You can too, I'm sure. I mean, he was speaking to Yeshiva Bachrim, but you can give it a shot and listen to it.
I'm there with my ruler and I'm measuring the fucking. I have one of those sukkah rulers, that has everything, and the tefach here and this and that. I said, this is crazy. I can't, And he spent so much time doing it, get it set up and everything. It's really like tight. Yeah. But all right, I'll say I don't want to insult him or anything. I just say, I won't mention your name. No.
Okay. Tess. Lo yamod adam birshus hayachir v'yiftach birshus harabim. Okay, or birshus harabim v'yiftach birshus hayachir. So now here's a person who's got a key. So he's got a key that's resting in this. The key is inside the Rishus Harabim. So he's standing in the Rishus Hayachid, and there's a key that's in the Rishus Harabim, and he wants to like lean out through a window, or whatever. Take the key and stick it in the. Take the key from its hiding place and open the door from the outside. Okay, even though the place of the Maftech is less than Balad Amas, still it's Aser. Why? It's a Gezerah, because he might forget himself and bring the key into the inside. And similarly, in the other direction, that if he's standing outside and he knows the hiding place of the key on the inside, he's not allowed to reach in and take it, because he might forget himself and pull the key to the outside. Okay. Ela imkain, he has, however, got a heter. How? Elim kain asa mechitza gavoa asrat tfachim. If he makes a mechitza if he has a mechitza that is 10 tfachim high, says Rabbi Meir. Right? What does this mean? In the Rosh Hashanah, there's a mechitza there. He's standing inside it. Okay, therefore it turns out that he's actually standing in the Rosh Hashanah and he's opening in the Rosh Hashanah. So that's how. Okay, so instead of standing in the Rosh Hashanah, he goes behind the mechitza, and now he's effectively in the Rosh Hashanah, and now he can stick his hand through. This is Rabbi Meir. Amru lo ma'aseh b'shuk shel patamin shehaya b'Yerushalayim. So it used to happen that in this shuk of patamin, the patamin are basically young
we call them butchers.
Creatures and birds for sale. Okay. They used to lock and leave the key in the window that was above the entrance. Okay, and that was a Rosh Hashanah, even though they were standing in the shuk. Okay, so this looks like a refutation of Rabbi Meir's opinion in the beginning of this Mishnah. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Omer shuk shel tzamarim haya, completely unrelated to halacha. He says it was the shuk of wool, which is actually interesting. Why? Kehati points out that Rabbi Yossi is not arguing about the halacha. He's just saying, this is the Master Shahaya. I don't know why the Mishnah sees fit to be pedantic about exactly what the Master Shahaya was. So the Gemara explains that actually this shuk that was in Yerushalayim was not really a Rosh Hashanah, it was just a Carmelist because Yerushalayim was already surrounded by walls. So its doors were closed at night. But our Mishnah is Chasure Mechsera. It's written with some words missing. So it's important here you have to add into this in the words of Rabbi Meir. Okay, so I'm going to read out what Kahati's got over here as the full lashon of the Mishnah that it should be. V'chein lo yamod adam b'rshus hayachid v'yiftach b'karmelis. And so Rabbi Meir is saying, and also a person mustn't stand in the private domain and open in the Carmelis, right? So you have to make this mechitza. This is Rabbi Meir. And on this, Chachamim said, this is what happened in Yerushalayim, which is like a Carmelis. So it turns out that the Reisha they're in agreement that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, everyone agrees that. Okay. So hold on. So regarding Carmelis, it turns out that the Gemara says that Rabbi Meir recanted his view and said, okay, fine, you're right about the Carmelis, but still, at least about the Rosh Hashanah, you have to do this. But Chachamim disagree with him even regarding the Rosh Hashanah. And they hold that it's mutar to stand in the Rosh Hashanah and open in the Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, since a person only needs the key in order to open and close, and then to put it back in its place. There's not such a chashash that he's going to forget himself and bring it into the rishus where he's standing. So it turns out that the machlokes is in place for whether it's rishus harabim or a karmelis. And Rabbi Meir comes over to the chachamim and concedes to them about the karmelis, but he still holds his position with regard to the rishus harabim.
But if he was going from public to private or private to public, that would be a problem.
Well, if you're standing in the one, as Chachamim say, that you can just be careful. Just remember yourself that when you're reaching through, make sure that you keep the key in its domain and you in your domain. They didn't make any gezerah that says that you can't do this as long as you're careful.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Eruvin Zion tests.
Rabbi Yossi said, to what do these three words apply? The installation of the Eruv, but for the remnants of the Eruv, any amount. For they only required an Eruv in courtyards not to let the children forget. Any food may be used to make an erev or shituf, except water or salt. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Yeshua says a loaf is an erev. Even if it is baked from a saab, but it is broken, it may not be used for an erev. A loaf worth an isser, but which is whole, may be used for an erev. A person may give a maha to a grocer or to a baker in order to give him possessions in an erev, and these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. But the sages say his money does not affect possession. But they concur that in regard to other people, his money gives him possession, and we cannot make an erev for a person except with his consent. Rabbi Yehuda says, to what do these words apply? To erevim techumen, to erev akunim, but in regard to erev chadzeros, we may make an erev with his consent or without his consent, for we may benefit a person in his absence, but we may not disadvantage a person except in his presence. Okay. All right.
Hey, Shabbos Yud Tes Daled.
Test knowledge. One who had two infants, one to circumcise after Shabbos and one to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot and circumcised the one who was to be circumcised after Shabbos on the Sabbath, he is liable. If he had one to circumcise before Shabbos and one to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot and circumcised the one who was to be circumcised before Shabbos on the Shabbos, Rabbi Eliezer declares him liable for a sin offering, but a Yeshua exempts him. And I did not mention anything, but I guess it has nothing to do with the fact that maybe it was the time before. Maybe he should have been in the next day because
he's doing the bris too early. He's not even doing a mitzvah.
Right.
So Rabbi Eliezer says that's a chatas.
So what about the terms of the infant? What has to be done with the infant? And anything to make sure that it's a kosher bris?
They have to redo the bris, basically to take the tafa again.
It's a dam, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. An infant may be circumcised either on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th day, but not earlier, not later. How is this? In the normal course, he was circumcised on the 8th. If he was born at twilight, he is circumcised on the 9th. If he was born at twilight on the eve of Shabbos, he is circumcised on the 10th. If a festival falls after Shabbos, he is circumcised on the 11th. In the case of the 2 festival days of Rosh Hashanah, he is circumcised on the 12th. A sick infant we may not circumcise until he recovers. These are the shreds that invalidate the circumcision. Flesh that covers the larger part of the corona, and he may not eat of truma. If he was fleshy, he must rectify it for appearance sake. If he is circumcised but did not expose the circumcision, it is as if he did not circumcise.
A second, I want to just go over that first Mishnah that we saw, Mishnah Daled. Just want to take that in again. Erev Shabbos b'Shabbos. Right. Okay. So if it was too early, then for sure he did no mitzvah, and therefore he's chayv chatas, according to all opinions. But the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua, that if he did something that was a mitzvah, even though it was not bizman, he would be pater from the chatas. Fine. Okay. Maaser Sheni Beis Hay.
Beis Hay. If chulin money and Maaser Sheni money was scattered, and whatever he picked up belongs to Maaser Sheni until it is completed, and reminder is chulin. If he gathered them and took them by the handful according to the proportion, this is the general rule. What is picked up belongs to Maaser Sheni, but what has been mixed according to its proportion. If a saw of Maaser Sheni and one of chulin became mixed up with he must bring coins worth a selah and say, a selah of Maaser, wherever it may be, is redeemed by these coins. Select the better one of them and redeem them with, since they said, silver may be redeemed with copper in case of necessity, not to leave it so, but not to redeem them again with silver. Beit Shammai says one may not convert his sellers into gold dinners, but the Beis Hillel permits. Rabbi Akiva said, I converted Rabbi Gamliel's and Rabbi Shua's money into gold dinners. Okay. We have
Daled Zion.
Daled Zion. Throughout all the 11 days of potential ziva, a woman is presumed to be tahor. If she sat and did not examine herself, whether it was inadvertently, by mishap, or deliberately that she failed to examine herself, she is tahor. If the time for her fixed period arrived and did not examine herself, she is tameh. Rameya says if she was in a hiding place and the time for her fixed period arrived and she did not examine herself, she is tahor, because terror suspends the discharge of bloods. However, during the days of Azav, a ziva, and one who is observing a day free of discharge against the day for which on she discharged blood, they are presumed to be tameh. Concerning a child who emerges from its mother through the abdominal wall, the mother does not observe on its account the days of Tuma and the days of Tahara, and is not liable on the account of an offering. But Reb Shimon says the child is like a naturally born child. All women become contaminated once their containing flow is in the outer room, for it is stated her discharge from her flesh being blood. But a zav and one who admitted semen do not become contaminated until their tumor exits through the outside of their bodies. If a Kohen was sitting eating truma and he felt that his limbs were trembling, he grabs the male organ and he swallows the truma. These discharges contaminate in any amount, even an amount equal to a mustard seed, and even an amount less than that.
Okay. Horus.
Okay. If one buys an animal from a non-Jew and it is not known whether he had born its first offspring or not, Rabbi Ishmael says the offspring of a goat in its first year certainly belongs to the Kohen. From here on it is questionable. The offspring of a ewe in its second year certainly belongs to the Kohen, and from here on it is questionable. The offspring of a cow or donkey in its third year certainly belongs to a Kohen, and from here on it is questionable. Rabbi Akiva said to him, if offspring alone would exempt the animal, it would be as you say, but they said, the sign of offspring in small livestock is a womb discharge, and in live livestock an amniotic sac, and in a woman an embryo or an amniotic sac. This is the rule. With any animal known to have previously born its first, the Kohen receives nothing, and with any other one that is not known for its first, this male offspring belongs to the Kohen. It is questionable. He may be eaten in the blemished state by its owner. Reb Eliezer Yaakov says if a large treehouse, if a large livestock animal discharges a mass of congealed blood, it must be buried and it is exempt from the laws of Bechor. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says if one buys a nursing animal from a non-Jew, he need not suspect that it was the offspring of another animal. If he entered among his flock and saw that those that had just born for the first time were nursing, and those that had previously given birth were nursing as well, he need not suspect that the offspring of this one came to that one, or that the offspring of that one came to this one. Hey, Reb Yossi ben Meshulam says if one slaughters a bakor, he may make space for a butcher's hatchet on either side and pluck the hair, provided that he does not dislodge it from its place. The same is true for one who plucks the hair to observe the place of the blemish.
In general, you're not allowed to do things like, to take the hair of a before, it's asur, but in order to make space for the shechita, that's permitted. Okay. Sota.
From the time the Sanhedrin was abolished, song was abolished in the banquet halls, as it is stated, with song they will not drink wine. When the early prophets died, the Urim Tumim ceased, and when the temple was destroyed, they disappeared the Shamir worm and Tuzfim honey, and that would cease to be any faithful men, as it is stated, save Hashem, for the devout one is no more. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says in the name of the Rav Shua, from the day the temple was destroyed, there was no day without its curse. The day the temple was destroyed, there is no day without its curse. The dew has not fallen, and blessing and favor has been removed from the fruits. Rabbi Yossi says the riches has also been lost from the fruits. Okay. Good? Yeah. One more?
Yeah, you've only done one so far.
Oh, sorry. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says the cessation of Tahara caused the loss of flavor and aroma. The cessation of the tithe caused the loss of the riches of the grain. And the sages say promiscuity and sorcery brought an end to all. During the siege of Vespasian, they decreed decreed a ban on the bridegroom's crowns and on the tambourine. During the siege of Titus, they declared a ban on brides' crowns and that a man may not teach his son Greek. During the final stage, they decreed that a bride may not go out of the city under a canopy, but our rabbis permitted the bride to go out in the city under the canopy. Okay. I
Hey.
think that, okay.
Okay.
Tomorrow we're going to go on to, after soda, we're going on to another one, right?
After Sota is Gittin.
Kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your help with the
Tomorrow.
other stuff. Thank you for the help with the other computer stuff and all. So,
Okay. Well,
okay. Well, have a great day.
you
Thank you.
too.